anything special? Sweet. I think so.
Yeah, I'll tell you all about it after. It's kind of neat.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
pretty neat.
Great.
Okay, so we are going.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Okay.
No,
Okay. Hi everyone in the room. Hi everyone on the internet. My name is Steve Ford. I'm the Executive Director of the Allied Arts Council here in Lethbridge. Today we're doing an information session, sort of part of our artwork professional development series that just sort of helps dive into the aspects of just making your art craft a little bit more realistic. How do you go from being just a hobbyist artist to actually becoming a practicing artist and getting paid for actually doing art? So we're very fortunate to have Jill Stanton, wonderful muralist who's actually working on a project right here in Lethbridge right now. Before we get fully started though, I'd like to do a quick land acknowledgement. Just like to acknowledge that we reside, work, play, and do art, including public art, on the traditional lands of the Blackfoot people, Treaty Number 7, and the Métis people. And we just, the main sort of focus when we talk about these land acknowledgements and I'm trying to drive home is that the words of land acknowledgement, those are important, but what's more important is maybe action, things that you can do, because reconciliation without any form of action is just words, and that's not enough. So, one that sort of popped into my head as thinking today is the idea of sort of elevating marginalized voices from the past, and something that we've done with Allied Arts Council. We have the Sail Tappy Gallery at the Gallery at Castle, which is a dedicated space just for Blackfoot artists. It's curated by a wonderful artist in their own right, Starcroft Earwolf, and currently Brendan Manybears has an exhibit there. It's from the Siksika Nation. Highly recommend go and check it out. It's always free at Casa. Go check out the gallery as well. So please do go and check that out. Without any further ado, and this is going to be casual, and that's great, and that's okay. We're going to give the floor to the wonderful Jill Stanton. And just for the folks online, there will be an opportunity for questions after the fact. Please just put your questions into the chat in Zoom there, and we'll answer those as we go. So without any further ado, snaps, jazz hands, whatever you want to do for Jill Stanton.
Yay, hi. Yeah, this is going to be very casual because I've been painting a mural and I feel like my brain is slightly mushy. But you know, I'm hoping that this is a bit of helpful information for you if you want to start painting murals. I actually did this talk a few years ago over Zoom with the Allied Arts Council, so it's exactly the same talk, except, you know, I'm a bunch of years older now and maybe wiser, who knows, but same slides. So we'll just chat a little bit about, you know, how to paint a mural. Yeah, next slide. Okay, so the first thing you have to kind of figure out is like, how do you work? So everybody has a different way of working, and like every artist has a different method, and like way that they like to plan their work and everything. And so the way that I work is going to be different from the way you work, and this is going to be different from the way somebody else is going to work, and that's fine. There's no wrong way to like start, you know, thinking about making public art and murals. But it's going to take some experimenting, and yeah, the materials take a little bit of getting used to. I would say that typically using like artist quality paints is going to be a little cost prohibitive for most projects. So like stuff like golden is often sort of touted as great mural paint, and while that is the case, it is also extremely expensive for large-scale works. So you might want to get used to using house paint. So Home Depot is a really good source of like little, like small sample containers of colors. You can pick your own color palette. The color mixing process is a lot different from artist paint, so that gets, you know, takes some getting used to as well. But yeah, so I think you got to figure out if your style is loose or graphic, is it textural, is it precise. All of these different factors are going to, you know, go into how you are going to approach the work. And I would say, honestly, if you have a small wall in your house that you can kind of play around with, working at scale or with a friend, doing some smaller scale works to start out with is going to go a long way in helping you to figure out sort of how the paint actually handles. Yeah, next slide. Okay, so starting to think big. So part of the really challenging thing, obviously, about painting a mural, as opposed to just painting on a canvas or drawing small in a sketchbook, is the scale. Getting your ideas from a piece of paper or digital onto a wall. And I think one of the big things that people tend to have issues with, or like challenges with, when starting to think big, is issues with composition and thinking about varying your scales and also translating your scales into a larger size. So think about like building your drawing with those sort of varying scales and making sure that your composition makes sense over the whole wall. The cool thing about murals, the cool thing about public art, is that unlike a canvas, you're not confined to just like your sort of canvas. You have to think about what's around the wall, like is there a tree beside the building, is there a door on the wall? So thinking about how these, one more microphone, perfect. So thinking about how these like scales play into your drawing is going to be really important. Just like practically, using detail sparingly was something that I had to learn the hard way. Keeping in mind, doing things really small and detailed in your studio, where you can kind of sit, work at your own pace is totally different when you have to do it over a huge sprawling wall and you have to do it within a specific time frame. So thinking about using detail sparingly or like strategically is really a good idea. They can be really rewarding in smaller pockets or like little areas of detail, and then keeping other areas like big and open. That's a really good way to play with composition and play with scale and play with sort of like varying, scales of things. The other thing, to keep distances and different vantage points in mind. So looking at your wall and like making sure that it makes sense from all of these different spots that people are going to be seeing it from. So looking at it from far away, looking at it from close up. Do those textures that you're using and the line scales, do they all make sense together? And are they appealing at all of those different scales and like viewing distances? I'm just reading my slide here basically. So small lines in the drawing and large in width. So this is something that is so important but really hard to kind of wrap your brain around, is if you have like a small drawing with like a pencil thin line and you blow it up to a 25-foot wall, that pencil line turns into like an inch wide. And it really makes a huge difference in how your mural translates. Sometimes a really thin line will translate and look cool on the mural, but make sure that it's intentional, your line weight. Scaling your line weight is just really, really important in planning your mural wall, I guess. Okay, next slide. I'm whipping through these things, but we'll have some time afterwards. I've been told to keep it, concise. Okay, so where's my next right here? So your prep drawing. So this is where you are going to be doing your plan for what the mural is really going to look like. It's really important for a client to see, so that they can visualize what you're thinking in their space. So I used to really just sort of, draw a drawing and then kind of superimpose it onto the mural site picture. But these days, honestly, I think that the best way to do it is just try to get the best straight ahead picture of the wall and then take a picture and then draw straight on that. And then, using your measurements of the wall, making sure that your scale translates using digital tools. It's the best way that you're going to see right away what your drawing is going to look like on the wall. And then you can make a graph paper sort of scale to see how you're going to blow it up onto the wall. I work digital for this kind of thing. It's really easy for me to like take a picture, and I even have an iPad now because I'm part of the future. And so you can draw it right onto there, and it's just like fast and easy to like change colors, play with scale, play with placement of your different shapes and stuff like that. It's so easy to get a sense of size and scale when you're actually looking at the thing on the wall that it's going to be on. And then I can't stress this enough, like making sure that you get very accurate dimensions of your wall, like very accurate measurements, and then making sure that you, like in Photoshop or whatever program you're in, making a grid so that, 1 inch is 1 foot kind of thing, or however you want to do your measurements. And then making a grid on your drawing so that you know exactly how big all of those shapes and all of those lines are in your picture. It's going to save you so much frustration and time down the road once you get to the actual wall. Okay, next slide. Okay, yeah, so the site. So this is, again, we talked about the wall dimensions. This is like very, very important. I'm not trying to, just like definitely important wall dimensions, accurate. Taking photos, a few vantage points, like this is gonna give you that sense of like the environment and the space around the wall, the space around the building. Is there any cool, like different vantage points that sort of, like lots of people use, or like maybe less people use that you want to focus on, or if you want to kind of, change the viewing point of your mural, that would be kind of interesting. Taking stock of any like, trees or other buildings or like, fences, like any sort of stuff around the site is super important to take note of. And then a close-up of the wall materials. So, you're gonna need to know what your wall surface is made of, because every wall surface and every material is going to be a totally different ballgame. So making sure that if you can't see the wall up close, like say you're in a different city, making sure the client gives you a photo, the close-up of the wall material, or if you can see it in person, like is it stucco, is it brick, is it cement, is it wood, like figuring out what the material is, because it will factor into essentially like how much detail you're going to be able to put into your drawing. If it's like a super bumpy brick, like a crazy stucco, you might not be able to do as much like very close like detail line work as you might want. And you might have to like think about something more simple. If it's very smooth, you can kind of go real nice and smooth with your lines, but you might have more issues with, potentially like a raw concrete. Sometimes will suck paint in really, like a lot, so you can put in paint, same with raw brick. The other thing to note is, does the surface need like resurfacing? Like, is it in good condition to paint? This is very, very important to think about. Does it have chipping paint? Does it have, graffiti on it already? Is it dirty? Is it dusty? Is there a bunch of like weeds in front of it that like prevent you from accessing it easily? All of these things are really important to talk to the client about. Being like, listen, like before I paint this, could you give it a wash, or could you, chip off this chipping paint? Sometimes like they'll have to sandblast it before you can paint it if it's like really chipping off. And then if they don't want to paint it, or if they don't want to do any of that kind of wall prep, just making sure that you let them know that you will be painting it in as-is condition, and that, if it falls off, that's not your fault. And one other thing is like anti-graffiti coating, just making sure that there isn't any anti-graffiti coating on the wall to begin with. It seems a little silly, but this has actually happened a couple of times to a couple of artists that I know that they weren't aware of any anti-graffiti coating on a wall, and then they paint a mural and then it comes off because nothing sticks to anti-graffiti coating. So just making sure that you do all of your due diligence with like, making sure that the wall is ready to be painted is gonna save you, again, tons of frustration. Thinking about like the site in general, is it in a busy area, like a big public, like bustling area? What are the surroundings? What are the vantage points like we talked about? Like, are you gonna feel secure? Do you need to think about like traffic suppression methods, something like that? Thinking about like, is the ground in front level? Are you gonna be able to put a ladder on it without it being like shaky? Is there storage area for you? Is there water access? Is there washroom access? These are all things that, you know, to have a conversation with the client about before you start painting, before you even start like really planning for the mural, just to make sure everybody's on the same page in terms of like all the stuff that you're gonna need to do this like project. And then in terms of like, you know, if you are in a busy area, making sure that you're able to sort of block off a working area with like pylons and caution tape and that kind of thing is super important, so that people, you know, aren't bumping into you, or like you're not, you know, accidentally bumping into people, and people just kind of understand that your space is delineated. Yeah, so all of these things you're gonna kind of have to keep in mind with the site. Yeah, next slide. Okay, so yeah, indoor and outdoor murals. Indoors is a really good way to kind of get your feet wet with painting murals. It's like definitely the easier option of like the two. So if you've never painted a mural before and you just sort of want to get a sense of like how it feels, indoors is really good because drywall is super smooth, obviously, easy to paint on. You'll get a great sense of how house paint works without like worrying about it, you know, extreme temperature fluctuations and rain and all of that stuff. So yeah, I started out painting indoor murals, and then, you know, felt comfortable eventually and then moved on to outdoor murals. Yeah, you don't have to worry about, like I said, season limitations, so you can paint all through the winter, you can paint, you know, till 4 in the morning if you want, like no problem. You know, you're not limited to daylight hours. Outdoors is more challenging because you have to worry about varying surface textures, temperature, weather fluctuations, working in public more so, but also thinking about how your paint is going to weather this, you know, weather the weather, I guess. So thinking more about making sure your materials can withstand climate. All of these things you don't really have to think about with indoors, but outdoors you have to think about much more, obviously. Yeah, paint handling and performance changes dramatically with extreme temperatures, so it'll dry way faster in hot and way slower in cold weather. Obviously, humidity will make a difference as well to like how quickly the house paint dries. You can use some of these things to your advantage, or, you know, obviously sometimes it's very frustrating as well, just depending on like how you work. So yeah, I think indoors is a really good way to sort of get a handle on things before moving on to outdoors. So that's always what I recommend. Yeah, next slide. All right, materials, next slide. Yeah, obviously paint. Paint is what you will be using. It's also called architectural coatings, which means like it's just like a fancy, you know, way of saying that this is paint specifically made for houses and like architectural like situations. It's made to go on walls that are made to be outdoors in the climate, which is like not necessarily what artistic acrylics are made for. They can be made for that, but I always default to house paint because it's way cheaper, more cost effective than artistic acrylics, and it's also made for leather. So in terms of brands, Deluxe and Sherwin-Williams are usually the ones that I go to. Oh, that's wrong slide, sorry. I just noticed previous slide we're going here. Oh, I'm missing a slide. Oh, there it is. Oh.
There you go.
Perfect. So Deluxe and Sherwin-Williams are my typically. So I really like both of them for different reasons. They have kind of different colors that they do better than each other, so sometimes I use a mix of both brands, which is maybe a little bad. Deluxe, like any paint brand will have sort of, you know, a few different lines of paint. So for Deluxe, Diamond is their top of the line, it's interior or exterior. Weatherguard is their sort of mid-range exterior, and then Life Luster is their mid-range interior. Typically for Deluxe, I go with Diamond every time. It's pretty good. It used to have some issues, but now it's great. Sherwin-Williams, Emerald is their top of the line interior and exterior. They also have Duration, which is, it's a little bit of a step down from Emerald. There's not much of a distinction between the two. And then they have Super Paint, which is sort of like their mid-range exterior. That's the one that I use typically for most things when I use Sherwin-Williams. It's great. A100 is like their sort of most economical. Like there's some limitations, especially on bright colors. It technically is not very opaque. Sherwin-Williams also is interesting for yellows and like very, very bright yellows and oranges and greens, because they have an exterior line called Latitude that has specific like yellow bases for the colors, so they just make very bright yellows, which is awesome. I have less experience with Benjamin Moore because they're sort of like very fancy and expensive, and I'm a little bit of a beast. But when I have used it, it has been very lovely. Aura is sort of their like top of the line, super nice stuff, interior and exterior lines there. And then Bear, don't sleep on Bear. I know it's kind of like also like a little, you know, controversial to say Bear is awesome. But I would say that Bear Marquee for the indoor paint is awesome paint, like really awesome paint. And it's great because they have the little testers that you can get for like very cheap. And when I first started painting murals, I collected like dozens, maybe like hundreds of these little tester colors, and they just come in these little super top jars, and you can just keep a color library, and they go really far because painting on drywall is really not very materials intensive. So it's great. It's a great thing to sort of get into painting interior murals. Yeah. Next slide. I feel like maybe my slides are. Here we go. Paint. More paint. Okay, so the fan color book. So a fan color book is like one of those sort of like a bunch of color chips all squished together in like a fan. And so it shows the true tone of the colors. Don't use the website for picking your colors. You will be sad every single time. It's totally not accurate and it's completely wrong. Make sure that you go into the store and get the color chips. I always recommend people, like when they're starting and then going to Home Depot for the Bear paint, literally go to Home Depot, pick one of each color chip into a big stack. They'll look at you like you're crazy, but it's fine. Yeah, and it's free, you don't have to pay for it, it's very awesome. And then it's just very nice to be able to compare the colors to each other physically, instead of being like, oh, I think like this paint is good, and I think this looks good. Like physically, like seeing them together is going to be really important. Sherwin-Williams and Deluxe, like the big paint brands, also have the things that you can steal, which I have, but they also have the fan books that you can purchase. That you just look like a little bit more of a pro when you have the actual fan color book. So definitely don't use the website, get the color chips. When you are going to, the paint companies, you can sign up for a contractor's account for discounts. But pay attention to sales that they have. Usually Deluxe has like buy one get one sales that are way better than what you like as like a non-professional house painter doing millions of gallons a year will get. So like the BOGO sales at Deluxe are quite awesome, and they do those a few times a year. How much paint to get? So this is a huge question, and it will vary quite a bit depending on your surface. So like raw concrete or brick, wood, super bumpy, porous, stucco has less coverage generally than like a very smooth, previously painted surface because it won't suck in as much paint. In general, it's about 350 square foot per gallon. So a gallon is like the big, gallon of paint, or 100 square feet per quart. But it really is going to depend, especially if you're outside, on like your coverage rate, like your colors. Like if you have like a super bright yellow and you're doing a bunch of coats, you're obviously going to go through more paint than a gray that's going to cover in like 1 or 2 coats. Typically, higher quality is better coverage, but again, like with those bright colors like the yellows and oranges and reds, dark reds especially, are the worst for coverage. So it's just going to depend a little bit. In general, I like to overestimate and get more paint than I need, and then I'm worrying about like scraping the bottom of little quarts. It's also just more economical, like to get more. If you think you're going to use more paint at some time down the line, then you'll just join the club where you just have a basement full of like half full of paint cans, like me. It's great, and then you just have like paint for days that you can pull for like little projects and stuff, and then just keep adding to your hoarding pile. It's awesome. Yeah. Okay. Next slide. Okay. So I missed the primer thing. So can you go up a couple of there? Yeah. Primer. So okay. Primer isn't always necessary if your paint is self-priming. So self-priming paints will have like a primer sort of mixed into it. Which most of the paints that I've recommended will be like that self-priming sort of characteristic. The only exception is like you have something super like that's gonna suck in a lot of stuff. So like a raw concrete or a brick or wood, it just makes your paint go further because it'll like suck in like the cheaper primer that your nice paint can go on top of it. It also is really good for like hiding stains and other crap on the wall. If there's like tags and stuff like that, use a primer. It seals concrete a little bit better than just paint alone. So yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to whip through this. So my go-to is usually Deluxe Gripper. It's what they call a bonding primer, and it just means that it's gonna bond to various surfaces. Whatever you're painting on, it'll probably bond to. The only exception is like if you're painting something plastic, don't paint something plastic is my recommendation. But if you're painting something plastic, you might need a weird primer for it. Or metal. Metal is also something that you'll need like a metal-specific primer. But otherwise, gripper or like any type of bonding primer from like any of those companies will be great. The other tip that I have about primer is tint your primer. Like it allows white chalk. If you're using chalk to draw on the wall, you can see it, and it helps the less opaque colors that you have like get more coverage. I really like to tint a primer with like kind of a beigey, pinky, orangey sort of tone because it's really nice under those otherwise harder to cover colors like yellow and orange and red and that kind of thing. It just kind of gives them a bit of help. And the last point there, priming to get acquainted with the wall. Sometimes if you have like a gigantic wall, it's nice to just like do the whole thing in one color just to kind of get a sense of the size. You're like seeing how big this wall is physically. It'll kind of erase all of the like inconsistencies that they might have with texture or like if there's a bunch of like stuff on the wall. It'll just give you a fresh start if you find that helpful. Sometimes I really find it helpful just to physically be like, okay, like this is what it feels like to be on every corner of this wall. Like, okay. So it just kind of like gets you revved up for the rest of the mural, I guess. Okay, next slide. I think it's brushes. Yeah, so house paint needs specific brushes. Like probably all of the brushes that you're using for whatever kind of painting you're doing at at the time, like, it's not gonna translate as well to house paint because it has a very specific handling to it. You want something with like a nylon polyester bristle, like not a hog hair, that's gonna just be terrible. I really like Wooster brushes. Pro Chinex is like the kind of style of those that I like. Get them at Home Depot. The other Wooster brushes that I like are these little stubby brushes with like floppy rubber handles. That's actually like mostly what I use these days. I think they're called shortcuts. They're awesome. They hold a lot of paint, but they have like a short handle so they're not putting you in the face. I have that problem all the time for some reason. And they're like a good sort of workhorse brush. And depending on like what kind of surface you're working on, you might need like a stiffer brush, like if you're going into like a really sort of bumpy stucco or like a rougher brick. And that is the Diamond Trilon Pro Orange Label at Home Depot. Those are like a nice, like stiff Chinex like bristle. And then for a softer bristle, Purdy is the brand. For me, Brown Label, Purdy XL, I think is the line. Those are amazing, amazing, beautiful brushes for interior work. Like, hands down the best. Like, I grew up, my mom was like a big, change the wall color every 5 days or whatever, so I grew up cutting with a lot of Purdy brushes, so those were the first ones that I bought when I figured out I was going to be a muralist. But yeah, you're just going to want like a few varying styles at first to see what you like. But yeah, you'll find that house paint definitely handles a lot different than any other like paint that you've probably used before. You're gonna want something a little stiffer than like a typical, polyester watercolor or acrylic brush because it's just gonna give you a sharper line. And then even for blending, like house paint doesn't want to be too floppy because otherwise it just kind of like squishes out in a weird way and it's not good. This is like part of the thing where it's gonna depend on like how you work and like what your style is, and so experiment a bit. I'm sure you'll find like your special brushes, like I have mine. A note about detail brushes: careful with going down the tiny brush wormhole. This was like a wormhole that I have spent a lot of time in, and I will tell you it's a dark, sad wormhole, depending on how big your wall is. Like for a big wall, like what I'm doing right now, I like will be like, it's illegal for me to bring anything less than a 1-inch brush. Like, I'm not allowed, because otherwise you just get too like compartmentalized and like tunnel holed into like little tiny details that literally nobody will ever see on a scale that big. And it just will like force you to move on and like not get too nitpicky about your scale and your like perfection, because murals, like hand-painted murals are really cool because they are not quite perfect. Otherwise, just get a vinyl print, you know what I mean? So I think just like embrace that sort of like vibe, and like obviously like, attention to detail is good, but not too detailed. Tiny brushes, bad, I promise. Promise. But if you do need a small-ish brush, Liquitex Freestyle, those are the best. They're amazing. Green handle, get them at the art stores. And then Princeton Aspen. And then I don't know. Aspen is the ones that I use though. Yeah, Aspen is the one that I use. And those are both great, like art store brushes for like smaller detail stuff. Yeah. Well, actually, Liquitex has like a stubby sort of paddle style brush as well that are really nice. Yeah, just basically any brush that has like a slightly stiffer synthetic bristle, but not too stiff and not too floppy. You'll kind of get the sense, but it does. You don't want it to be very floppy. That's the worst. Too stiff is maybe a little bit better, but anyway, those are my two brands for small detail brushes. But careful with the tiny brushes. Okay, next slide. Rollers. So I hate rollers. I find them very annoying. They seem to be just like always like paint everywhere and everything. Not very, organized. But yeah, obviously if you're painting the wall, you gotta use a roller at some point because otherwise you're crazy. So get comfortable with them. I really like speed rollers, which are like the little 4-inch guys. That's basically all I ever use unless I'm like doing a huge space with like one color, or if I'm timing, I'll use like a big normal roller. But honestly, the speed rollers are so nice because they're quick to like load and reload. They're not like, they don't have the big cage that's like a huge pain in the butt to like clean out. They just are like on a little stick, and you can just switch them out really easily. You get like the 4-inch roller packs, and then you can have a different color for each, or different roller for each of your colors. You can draw with them really nicely, so you can get like a really nice line with them, obviously, depending on the kind of roller you get. Yeah, so speaking of the kinds of rollers you can get, sorry, how are we on time? We're good? No, it's okay. You can go back to the next slide. Sorry, I was just checking the time. We're good?
We're good.
So rollers, you can get sort of ones that are like a little bit thicker pile. So the thicker the pile, or like the material, like that, those sort of fibers, the more paint that gets sucked into them, obviously. So on thicker, like, or sort of bumpier, like crazier stucco, or really like textured brick, you're gonna want like a thicker pile. And then smoother surfaces like drywall or concrete get like a thinner pile. Another tip is sometimes a foam roller is kind of fun to use because often, and not all the time, one side is sort of rounded out, but one side has this kind of like straight cut, and so you can actually get some really nice crisp edges with the foam roller sometimes. So I would say like to kind of get a bunch of different ones, especially with the speed rollers. It's just like so easy to switch them out to see which one you like to draw with. And like depending on your style, like some people just really like to just draw with rollers or like paint with rollers, or like be very expressive and like gestural with it. Yeah, and you can shade with them, you can just blend with them. So I think it's like a good idea to kind of get acquainted with using the roller. I always just have like a big pile of like smaller trays that I can switch out with colors, and then they dry, and then I use them over and over again. And with my rollers, I have one for each color, keep them in a container, like each one kind of coated in saran wrap in a container so they don't dry out, and then I can just keep using the same ones over and over. So I'm not like constantly washing them, which is the worst task ever. So just saran wrap them, keep them in an airtight container, and they should keep moist enough to keep using. Yeah, next slide. All right, so this is just like the other stuff you kind of need or like think about. Like for materials, spray paint, I don't know very much about spray paint, but in the like extremely limited amount that I've used it, like it's good for speed, for blending and textures, depending on like what you're going for. Obviously, it's a whole other art form in its own right, so if like you should go for that if you want to go for it. I don't know anything about it, and I'm terrible at spray paint, so that's all I can really tell you about it. Sometimes you can use it for an underdrawing. I've seen people do that. But yeah, it's a whole other thing. I will say that spray paint is often, like, it fades a little bit faster than like architectural coatings or like house paint or bucket paint. So sometimes like it's not as archival and it won't wear as longer, but it depends on the spray paint. Something to keep in mind though. Chalk. So this is what I use for drawing on the wall. It's easily removable. You just have like a wet rag with you. Crayola, chalkboard chalk, white. Don't use a colored chalk. It will mess with your colors, your paint, because it'll mix into your paint. Just plain chalkboard chalk is amazing. It's cheap, and it's just, you can see it from a distance. You can get it on the wall really quickly and take it off really quickly. That's going to be your best friend for getting your drawing on the wall. Tape. This is another wormhole. Don't rely on tape too much to like get straight lines. Like really, if you're gonna be like, I'm a person who uses straight lines or like really like precise lines, just take the time to practice getting that, like getting good at using a brush to achieve that instead of using tape to achieve that, because it's gonna be way faster down the line to just be able to use your brush to get your straight and like precise lines instead of like putting tape on the wall every single time. And also sometimes tape fails, tape looks like tape, and you know, that's not very cool look sometimes. But if you need tape, you need tape. Frog tape is like the kind of expensive-ish, like more expensive option, but it's worth it for, you know, smooth surfaces. The yellow frog tape is the one that I use typically for indoor stuff. It won't do the thing where like the paint actually sneaks in and gives you that kind of weird craggy line. It won't do that, and it comes off clean, so it is worth it. Blue tape is a workhorse if you're just sort of like blocking off a big area and you're not really worried about the craggy line so much. But again, tape is a bit of a wormhole. Try not to rely on it because it just, you can use it as a crutch, I find, and then it just sort of ends up taking longer than, you know, if you were to just sort of go for it with another method. So Floetrol is like an additive that you can use to paint that sort of slows dry time a little bit, and it levels the brush strokes. It's helpful if it's super hot outside and you're trying to blend something, or if your paint is just drying too fast. It's like kind of like, I don't know, almost like an acrylic medium. I don't use it that often, but sometimes I'll bring it with me on a site just in case it's like too hot and my paint is just being really horrible. More so, I will just add like a tiny bit of water to loosen the paint up a bit so it flows better off of my brush. That's fine. Don't go crazy with the water because that will affect the paint film and it won't cure properly. But you can totally add like a little bit of water, especially if you're just like standing there on a hot day and you're like using this paint can and it's like getting drier and drier because of the water evaporation. Adding that water back in is totally fine. Yeah, that's probably good for that. Next slide. So anti-graffiti coating is a whole thing. I personally don't really ever use it. It's like a huge pain in the butt to apply. It's very expensive. Sometimes clients will require it though. So I typically will just say like, listen, I don't usually use anti-graffiti coating. You know, if you would like to contract somebody to apply the anti-graffiti coating, you're more than welcome to. Or, you know, I have like a contractor that does it for me sometimes, but it's really, really expensive, the actual material. There's a few different kinds. There's like, you know, a 2-part system that you put it on and then it's like permanent and you can just rub graffiti off with a washcloth. Or there's sacrificial ones that you have to put back on every time you take something off. There's different kinds and they all have pros and cons, but they all suck, in my opinion, to apply. And also they change the look of your mural. They all have like a certain film or like a, you know, like a glossy sort of appearance to it. So it's like something to keep in mind in terms of like the surface. If it's like a crazy stucco or a brick or something, it's gonna look really insane to have like a crazy gloss sheen on it. So that might be something to keep in mind if you're debating whether or not to use it. I would say if you're gonna get somebody to apply an anti-graffiti coating, often the contractors will only put it up to about 8 or 10 feet because that's like, you know, tagging height, like, you know, reaching height. And so what happens is they put it up to 10 feet and your mural is 20 feet and it just has like a line at 10 feet and it looks insane. So you have to specifically request that they put it all the way up because they won't, that's not their kind of, you know, baseline. Yeah, I think it's like pretty rare that murals get tagged, but it definitely happens. So I think it's just a pros and cons thing with like figuring out if the site is prone to graffiti, then possibly, you know, to think about what is the graffiti like management system in place. Like it's possibly, you know, maybe we do need an anti-graffiti coating, or maybe you're making your mural more simple at the sort of tagging height, or like at like, you know, reaching height, and then like keeping detail higher up. These sorts of things, like thinking about those like design concepts to like mitigate tagging, you know, damage. But yeah, that's all. That's what I have to say about anti-graffiti coating. I don't know. I don't have a lot to say about it, I guess, because I don't use it necessarily. But you know, next question or slide or whatever. Okay, so lifts. Yeah, like, you know, you can use a ladder, but when you need a lift, obviously. I use lifts for most walls that are over like 12 or 14 feet. Like, you know, 12, 14 feet, it's like you can find a ladder for that. It kind of sucks to use, but, you know. But yeah, after that, you have to use a lift because it's not, you know, safe to use a ladder too tall. You can use different lifts for different jobs and sites. Obviously, you need certifications. You'll need fall protection, and you'll need, actually, this is outdated. I have here aerial lift platforms, but now they're called mobile elevated work platforms, or MEWP, which is the worst acronym ever. So you'll need those 2 certifications in order to drive a lift. Yeah, MEWP, gross. And unfortunately, you will need to go in for like training for that. So yeah, and for the first rounds of certifications, you got to take it in person in the classroom. Each class is a day, and you take an exam at the end. After the initial in-person training, with the fall protection, you can re-up your certification online every 3 years. Like the certification lasts for 3 years. But then, like for the lifts, you got to go back in person, unfortunately, for the MEWP certification. Yeah, if you don't have a certification and you drive a lift, then OHS will murder you. Not actually, but they will be very sad. And I have had to deal with OHS so many times, and it's not fun. So just get certified, and you got to get a harness and a lanyard, and it's a whole thing that you will learn in your, you know, certification training. So this is a point to say though, is some artists get away with no training and no like harness and all of that. You know, you're at a mural festival, or somebody's just like, oh, I have a lift, and you can do it. Like it doesn't take rocket science to know how to drive a lift or like figure it out. But if you don't have training, you can get fined, you can get in trouble, and you can have OHS come and shut your site down, and then you can't work on the thing until you get training, and it's just, that would suck. So just be responsible, get training, don't fall to peer pressure. You know, oh, don't need training, don't be not cool, man. Be responsible. That's what I say, because I have definitely had my site shut down a few times, and it sucks. Just do it. Okay, next slide. Oh, wow. Okay, ready to paint. Go next slide. Okay, so you're on the wall. So like we said before, the more drawing prep, the better for getting your image onto the wall. Scaling your drawing is crucial. So doing that thing where you're bringing to site a version of your image with the superimposed grid that we talked about. I like to use a 1 foot grid, like 1 foot to 1 inch. I also like to use, actually I didn't bring it with me, or I did, I'll bring it out later if somebody's interested. But I like to, depending on how big my wall is, have the 1 foot grid, but then also markers for 3 feet as well in a different sort of like pattern or color, so that I can kind of count quickly, like by 3s instead of just by 1s, because that can get a little overwhelming. And it's just easier to be sort of spatially aware of the whole wall. So you can use chalk or tape or spray paint for sketching or to get sort of your sense of scale on the wall. Like I said before, I really like chalk. That's my favorite. I think it's the best for various reasons. Other methods, or like different methods of getting your picture on the wall. Some people use projectors. It can be super handy, especially for like faces or anything really specific, like, you know, scale-wise, it's gonna look wonky if it's like a little off. And it's like kind of, you know, like just tracing, like very idiot-proof, unless you have technology issues or like, you know, you're limited to nighttime hours where you can see it. You have to have like a super high power lumen projector. You don't always have access to those things. Power supply can sometimes be an issue. Vantage point for the projector can sometimes be an issue. And it doesn't always like put the thing exactly where you want it on the wall, so you're not tailoring it to the wall necessarily sometimes exactly where you want. For me, like I've definitely seen lots of people rely on projectors, like even like really, you know, famous big artists like from mural festivals, you know, they're like, I need a projector. But for me, I just prefer to be able to not have to rely on this like tech to like get my thing on the wall. I just want to be super low maintenance, low tech, you know, get it sort of in and out. So what I like to do is I just use like basically a grid. So my grid is not perfect. It is pretty good. I use a small level and I have it like, you know, measure markings or whatever, and I just level like 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot. And so I have my sort of like quick grid on the wall. I use an X for each foot mark, and then every 3 feet I circle the X. So that's my like 3 foot. And it just like allows me to see the whole wall, and like it relates exactly to my picture. It's like super easy for me. And then I just freehand everything after that based on, you know, the grid. Another method is the squiggle or doodle grid is what they call it. So it's basically you go to a wall and you like spray paint, or you can chalk like just a bunch of like literal doodles like all over the wall. And then you take the photo of your doodles, and then you superimpose your mural image onto that photo. And then what happens is you use that, you know, your superimposed image, and then using your doodles, it's kind of the same thing as having a grid. I don't use it because it's just, for some reason, my brain breaks a little bit, but it's very cool. I've seen other people use it, like go to YouTube, there's lots of like very cool, you know, showing people how to use it. And it's like, technically it could be like a lot faster than using a grid because you're not measuring or anything, it's just sort of like doodling. Yeah, next slide. Oh yeah, this is basically the whole. So this is just my method. Yeah, like I said, I have a grid typically, but then, you know, just also like use the wall as like your reference points as well. Like if there are like specific features on the wall that you can see, like cracks or windows or drain pipes and stuff that you can use as like reference points for measurements, those are really good for anchoring your sort of measuring from. Cinder blocks and bricks are really cool because you can measure them, and then those are like built-in grids. So cinder blocks are typically 8 inches, or yeah, 8 by 16. So like that, you know, you can build your grid in that way if you're painting on a cinder block. Just use the wall smartly when you're figuring out how to like get your thing on the wall. It takes some practice, but like it encourages flexibility to tailor a mural to its specific surroundings, which I think is really important when you're painting a mural. Next slide. Finally, painting a wall. So everybody has a different method of working, and honestly, it sort of depends on every mural. Like it says worked big to small, and sometimes I do this and sometimes I don't, depending on the mural. But you know, like working big to small is typically the best sort of way to wrap your head around like the bigger elements, and then you're not going too far down the rabbit hole of detail again. Background elements first, and then try to get everything sort of blocked in before honing in on detail. And this is going to help you set your pace. So you're going to figure out like how fast you're sort of working from, like how long did it take me to cover the whole wall in like one coat of paint sort of thing. And then you can kind of figure out how fast everything else is going to be from there. Yeah, set your pace early. So like, I like to just go right out the gate, like working as fast and like as long in the day as I possibly can so that I'm not sad and running out of time later on. Excuse me. Working in public, consider site safety. We talked about this a little bit before, using pylons and caution tape. You just want to delineate your space from like everybody else because people will just, they're curious naturally. And that's cool, but like, you know, you are working and like you have like tools and stuff and you just, for safety and for like just your own sort of sanity and security, just like having a little like, you know, pylon, caution tape sort of zone is really good, but this is especially important if you're working on any sort of a ladder at heights or a lift. You need that, that sort of delineation zone for, you know, insurance purpose and also for safety. Weather, higher temps, faster drying. We talked about this with the paint. If you are like, you know, timing your mural, just make sure that you have some rain allowance days in there just in case it rains, so you're not like caught off guard if the weather sort of like sets you back. Just keep very aware of active weather. Have like a weather alert on your phone or something like that that you're sort of checking every so often, especially in Alberta, like, you know, that we had that hurricane the other day, like, or not actual hurricane, but it, you know, like it came on very suddenly and it was really crazy. So like just making sure that you're sort of aware of that. And then considering your drying times, like, you know, and like whether that is gonna be enough before the weather sort of rolls in. The other thing to consider with drying times, making sure that you're like, if it's cooler in the evenings and like the paint is not drying as fast, like maybe it's like on a super bumpy surface that is like, you know, just wetter for longer, making sure that those like areas that you're not, like that won't dry fast, aren't going to be at touching level when you leave for the day, because they'll just get messed up probably. Okay, next slide. This is a lot of slides, guys, I'm sorry. Only a few more. Okay, next slide. So client work. So yay, you've been asked to paint a mural. That's great. So your next steps is to ask the client to provide photos of the wall, including the surrounding site, close-ups of the surface, like we talked about, exact proper dimensions of the wall, again, like we talked about. What are they looking for, like for design-wise? Like, do they have references of like work that you've done in the past that they liked? Like, that would be helpful to know. Do they have specific design directions or, you know, themes, whatever? What is their timeline? And sometimes I find it's really helpful to ask about their budget. You know, if they have a budget in mind, then, you know, great. And then, you know, sometimes it's best to quote first. With this info, prepare a quote. So I like to include some general information about what to expect during a mural project with this quote, as well as talking about any like site requirements I have. Like I always say, you know, I need bathroom access, storage. If it's an indoor mural, like making sure that I have like some kind of a key or a enter code situation, or just making sure everybody's on the same page in terms of like if there are specific hour access, so you can build that into your own timeline. Okay, next quote. Okay, in the quote, I include a design fee. So for your prep drawing, the amount is up to you. I always find that $500 is like a pretty, you know, normal, good number. You can up it or lower it if you want. And then, so what this fee is like, it's just covers your labor just to do a design. So don't ever do a design like for free or like on spec, they call it, like before, you know, they say that they're gonna pay you or anything. Make sure that you get paid before doing this design. Because a lot of times people are just sort of fishing for designs or they're sort of wishy-washy, and it sort of takes that away if they have to like pay you to do, you know, the quite a bit of labor that is that's involved in like doing all of the research and like, you know, figuring out, you know, whatever, the drawing. Yeah, it ensures that you get paid for that labor. So I like to say it's due upon acceptance of the quote before the drawing is produced. It's non-refundable, it's not like a deposit, it's just, it covers the labor and that's it. Yeah, and then a couple weeks for turnaround. And then it just, yeah, just means that you're sort of like eliminating the people that just want you to do a mural to see what you would do and then they'll say, no, never mind. Yeah, next slide. Okay, yeah. Murals are a ton of work, and planning for them requires purchasing large amounts of non-refundable materials and setting aside weeks to devote solely to the project, preventing other projects. Protect yourself from last-minute canceled projects or unreliable clients by presenting a payment/deposit structure. Yeah, it's really important. You're a contractor, you're a freelancer, so you have to consider all of your like overheads and everything. If you're saying yes to one project, you're saying no to other projects. Like, that's just the reality of things. So just making sure that your contract and your payment structure reflects that. So an example of like how you could structure that is, you know, your design fee, like we said before, deposit, or not deposit, sorry, it's due before drawing, it's non-refundable. And then the first deposit, you can sort of set it up into different, you know, however many deposits of different varying percentages. Often I will use like a 30% upfront before I start work, you know, 50% at a certain, like the next up to 50% at a certain, you know, halfway through or something. And then the rest at the, you know, completion. Sometimes it'll be a different fee structure. It's just going to depend on like, you guys are going to, you know, figure that out. But also it's very normal to do this. Sorry, my brain is slowly melting now that it's like a little later in the day. It's like totally normal to do this. So don't feel bad for saying like, I need money up front to paint this mural. Because yeah, you are ponying up all of this money to buy materials and stuff. So you need money to do that. And then consider something called a kill fee also, which means like, you know, at a certain point, if they cancel or if something happens, you know, and you can't do it, like they owe you a certain amount of the money because you've put in a certain amount of labor. Yeah, so, and this is another thing where, or one thing that I generally hate AI and stuff like that, but it does help with contracts. If you are like, kind of, how do I make a contract? It does help with like figuring out language and like figuring out like how to protect you without having to like, you know, hire a lawyer, which I can't afford. So yeah, AI is interesting for that. Yeah, so that's that. We can talk about this more if you have specific questions about it. I'm just breezing through these things time-wise. For pricing, there's lots of ways you can price a project, and this is going to be very dependent on every individual artist. You're going to learn what works best for you as you go. You know, some quotists will give a quote based on square foot. I don't always do this because there's so many different variables in each project, so that it's just like, it's hard to say a specific square foot rate all the time. You know, like if it's a really tall wall and I'm like running up and down a like ladder or lift, or it's just, some walls are harder to paint than others, and it depends what they want design-wise, you know. Rougher walls will take more paint and so therefore more money to paint than like a smoother wall. Ease of sight and wall access is a factor. Like if it's like a site that's, you know, like over a stairwell and you have to like, you know, it's like that's going to be just like harder to access and harder to paint, and so that can be a factor in how you price things. Don't be afraid to have different rates for like corporate or commercial, nonprofit, mural festivals. Like you'll sort of like figure out your own pricing structure based on like, you know, some of those values. Don't ever paint a mural for free. I know it can be very tempting, and like you can do it, you know, if it's like a pal or like family member, you're just like, but if a business wants you to just paint a mural for free, don't do it. Please don't do it, because what happens is it just messes it up for everybody. It just means that like people think that they can get a mural for free, and so it just devalues the work for everybody trying to paint murals, and it means that my rates go down and your rates won't ever go up. And I just think like definitely always get your materials covered at an absolute minimum, and like try to get like, you know, at least minimum wage or something for your labor. Even if you're thinking like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, I haven't done this before. And like, I get it, I've definitely done this before where I undercharge for my labor, but it comes back and bites you in the butt. And I think especially nowadays with like everybody like on social media trying to just like be like, I'll do it for free. Like everybody's trying to do murals for like less and less money, because like businesses think that they can get it because they have got it. And it's just a race to the bottom, and it's not good. So try and at least like charge something for a mural, even if it's your first mural and like you don't know what you're doing. Yeah, just think about like the future of the industry, I guess, because yeah, it's so much work. Like painting a mural is so much work, and it's so much like to think about. There's so many moving parts, and it's like valuable. Like it's an extremely valuable, cool thing that you're gonna do. So, you know, get paid. Next slide. All right, pricing. So what to factor into your budget? Design fee, like we said. Your primer and your paint and your supplies, all of these things, like sometimes I sort of squish those into one budget line. Your equipment, if you need to rent a lift or rent ladders or a scaffold, like any of those sorts of things. If you need to rent a spray gun, like include any of that. If you need an assistant, like if you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do all this myself, like if you need somebody to, you know, come in and help you, factor that into your budget. And then your artist fee and your labor. So this is you'll figure this out as you go a little bit. I think it's really important to time yourself when you're starting. When you're just sort of figuring out how to, like, what you're doing with painting murals, like time literally everything that you're doing. How long does it take you to do a prep drawing? Time it on your phone, like to the minute. How long does it take you to pick colors? How long does it take you to write emails? How long does it take you to, like, all of these little tiny things? Because this is like all factored into your overhead. So like your hourly rate is not going to be the same as like at a job where you're getting paid when you're there. Your hourly rate, like it's like there's a whole other different system of like figuring out how to give yourself a proper wage, because you have to figure in, your taxes and all of that stuff. And everybody's going to work at a different like speed and rate as well. Some artists like are really detailed and their murals take forever. Some artists like they are really simple, like kind of graphic murals, and they don't take as long. So I think you, as you go, will figure out, like you'll refine a better way of pricing your murals. And this is why I'm like, it's okay to be like a little low on your pricing at the beginning, like because you don't know what you're, like how fast it'll be. As long as you time yourself, you have to time yourself with every single thing that you do. Be like very militant about it, because that will give you data for the future of like how long everything takes. So if it takes you a week to paint, this mural, that will give you a sense of like what a different size of a wall will take, because you have that information. And honestly, like you'll get better at figuring out how long everything takes you. I like to go like make sure that I'm timing everything. So if I'm pricing something, I'll say, okay, I want to make at least the X amount per day. And so if I look at a wall and I'm like, that's going to take me 12 days to paint, that will give me information about what, you know, approximately to charge for that labor. Yeah, you'll get better at this once you get going. Just paint more murals, time everything. Next slide. Yeah, okay, guess that's it. I don't know, that was a lot, sorry. And I'm not sure if it made total sense, but that's, you know. Any questions?
I thought it was good. I want to give a nice round of applause. So we'll open it up for questions.
Oof.
And that goes for online folks too. If you have questions, you can just pop into the chat there.
Yes.
And I'll bring around this awkward microphone.
Oh, yeah.
Oh no, I don't need a microphone.
Okay.
Sorry, I just talk about it anyway.
Yeah.
Can you explain more about the kill fee?
Yeah, so a kill fee is like, and there's different ways to do it, but essentially like it's just protecting you from not getting paid at all if a project like doesn't go through. So some people will be like, you know, if the client cancels within a week of starting, then like 30% is still owed to me. If a client cancels the day starting, like, you know, 50% is still due. If they cancel when I'm started, like 100% is due. Like there's different ways of breaking it down. And that's like something to just add into a contract. A really good resource actually is, what's it called? Well, Carfax is a really good resource actually for stuff like this, but then also the Graphic Artists Guild, something like that. It's an American publication, but basically it's like this big encyclopedia of like graphic artists like stuff to know, like how to make a contract, how to like, you know, price stuff, like based on each industry, like illustration, design, whatever, photography. And they publish like a big, thick, like handbook basically of different rates and stuff every year. It's kind of expensive to buy one. I think it's like $70, but they often have one at like libraries. I think it's like Graphic Artists Guild, I think is like what it's called. But yeah, that's a really good resource for like specifically like, I mean, I'm not making a ton of sense right now, but like they break it down in a easier to digest way, like how to structure a kill fee, how to structure a contract, like how to build all of those sort of things in. Yeah.
And Rosemary from the Jazz, I think you addressed it. Just do you ever use Carfax fees?
Yeah, Carfax is another good one. Yeah. I find Carfax is a little like more general, less specific than that Graphic Artists Guild. The only problem with that, like Graphic Artists Guild, is it's American, so all like the numbers are like American rates, but I mean, it's still good to know, and it gives like a general sort of vibe on prices and stuff.
Graphic Artists Guild handbook.
Yeah, yeah, it's awesome. I have one from like 4 years ago or something, and I use it all the time. I reference it constantly. Yeah.
What are the issues you find regarding using like regular artists' acrylics for interior quality?
I mean, if you're doing something small, I think it's fine. But I think like it's just it's not cost effective for me, and like often I find that it doesn't handle awesome on like a previously painted like drywall wall, because it doesn't stick great to like whatever like house paint like. And so like it just has like a funny texture, and it doesn't, I don't know. I don't use it for murals because it's not cost effective, and so I just never got used to handling with it. I think if you are planning on painting murals any bigger than like, you know, maybe 8 by 8 like feet, it's worth it to get used to house paint, because it's gonna be like astronomically expensive to use artist paint for anything bigger than that. Even 8 by 8 with just golden is going to be like crazy expensive.
And like house paint is specifically made for walls, and it's just, yeah, it's so much cheaper. And it just means that you'll be able to like do bigger walls for like prices that aren't gonna scare clients away like right off the bat. You'll be able to pay yourself a little bit more because you won't be spending all of your budget on paint. And it's, yeah, I mean, it definitely handles differently. It like colors mix completely differently. Like it's not even like in the same like universe in terms of like color mixing. So it takes some getting used to, but I think if you are wanting to paint murals, it's worth getting used to it, getting to know it, yeah. Not to say that you can't paint like big murals with golden paint, for instance, like people definitely do. And actually Golden makes like a specific line of mural paints.
One outside is that, I think it's kind of.
Yeah.
No way, really? Oh my god, it was crazy.
But it's expensive, and you have to special order it from the States, which has like duties and tariffs and all kinds of stupid crap on it. And it's like very cost prohibitive for a lot of like projects. And I just find that like, it's not necessary, you know, like it's like, it's nice to have if there's like a specific, like if you really, really love golden paint or like really can't like wrap your head around, you know, house paint, then maybe that's an option. But for me, it's like house paint is so awesome now. Like the technology has gone so far and it's like specifically made for walls. The colors are like nice and bright, and I don't know, like it's just like, yeah, I've never seen it as like something necessary to use, like very specific golden paint or like artist paint for murals.
I know we have one from Karen on here. How did you get your first public mural, and what did you show in your portfolio?
A public mural, like, okay, so, well, so how I started with murals was I was doing like bigger and bigger drawings and paintings, and I was just like, maybe I want to paint a mural. And then I went on Facebook when people still had Facebook and was like, does anybody want a mural? And I had a friend in Vancouver who was working at a tech company back when tech companies had money. And she was like in Vancouver at this like startup, and she was like, yeah, come to the office. Like we've got this big wall, like come paint it. And I was like, sounds great. I didn't know what I was doing. I booked an Airbnb that I didn't even see the inside of because this wall was like murdered me. Like I just had like no sense of how big it was until I got there, and I spent like 20 hours a day for 7 days on this wall, and it was bonkers. I had like literal smell lines coming off of me by the end of it. It was terrible. But like I did it, and it was like a real high. Like I was like, oh man, this is what I want to do forever. And like honestly, that's how it worked. Like that was like first. It wasn't a super public mural, but that was like my first mural, I guess. And then I just honestly started doing them for tech companies because word of mouth. But then my first like public mural was in Peterborough. It was like this like bloodroot mural under a bridge. And it was a huge jump in scale from anything that I'd ever done. And I got it by, you know, obviously putting in the murals that I'd done for these like smaller indoor private companies, but also just like bigger paintings that I'd done. Larger paintings, like illustrations that I had done that like were related to the style that I was proposing for the mural that I wanted to do. I think it depends on, in terms of like how to sort of make a portfolio for mural applications, like it does help to have some previously completed murals. So even if that's like in your house, like painting a wall just to get a sense and then repainting it if you're renting, like do that or something. Or like, you know, see if like a friend wants their garage painted or something, just like something to like get something in your portfolio that shows that you can do something like a bit at scale. But sparing that, like, you know, larger paintings, big drawings on big craft paper, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah.
you're starting off
Yeah,
and like you're spending hundreds and hundreds of hours on a project and
yeah.
not getting super burnt out.
Oh, what's that like? I mean, yeah. Okay. Just like, how do you not get burnt out?
If you have advice on, especially like when you're starting out, like I did my first mural last summer.
Yeah.
It was like on top of a full-time job.
Yeah,
on
totally.
Days off, spending 20 hours a day doing it.
Yeah, yeah. I hear you.
It took a while for me to be like, yeah, I'll do this again.
Yeah, I get it. Like when I first started, I also had a job, and it was like it was lucky because it was flexible. Like they let me take some time off for it, which is lucky. But yeah, it's a lot, and it's like yeah. There's a big trade-off with like taking the leap into like being a muralist and then like having a job. Like they don't compute a lot of the time. Like luckily for me, murals are really nice because I like to focus on something intensely for a short period of time and then peace out. So it works great for me and my brain, but it is not consistent. Yeah, it's tricky to like find the balance between like stable income and like doing murals and like how to make all those work together. I cobble together a lot of things basically. So like I paint murals, I do illustration and design and like do my own studio practice and like cobble together a bunch of different things. I would love to do murals full time, like, but it just hasn't, like I used to do murals more full time, but I did get burnt out because it is like a ton of work. Like they are so intense. You're just like, I'm on this wall that I'm doing right now, like, 13 or 14 hours a day, and then you just like go home and like sleep and then come back and do it like again. And I love it, but it's also like quite like physical and like mentally draining. Yeah, I don't know. It's tricky. Like it's really tricky, and I think that's why it's like really important again to like not do it for free and like get paid, because like it's so much work and it's so intense, and it's like it should be more valued for what it is, because it's like very cool, but a lot. So I don't know.
Tips for like making it more efficient during the painting process?
It really depends on your own style and like your sort of like for me, I am like I've got my own, like the way that I organize a site makes me a little more efficient. Like I actually took photos of my work site, but it's not that I can show them on the thing. Basically, I just have like, like my go bag with like all of my like very specific materials like categorized. Like I'm not like strewing everything about. With my brushes, like I have a little sort of brush case. It's just like a Ziploc, like a snap lock container. I have clean brushes on the bottom compartment. Brushes on the top are like, each color has their own brush that I wrap in saran wrap and keep in an airtight container so that I'm not like constantly washing brushes. Each one is just like its own color, and I just like can come back to it, wrap it back up. If it's like in a sealed container, then you're not like having to wash them over and over and they don't dry out. So that saves me a lot of time, that kind of like little things like that. Yeah, it's like the more you do it, the more the more you'll know where you can kind of get more efficient or get sort of more strategic with your time. I think like it used to take me like at least a couple of days to wrap my head around like how to get the thing on the wall and like scale and everything, because I was just sort of like drawing a line and being like, does that look good? But like for me now, like I go in with that grid and it takes me like a day, like tops, to do it, and that saves me time in the long run, because I'm not like coming down and being like, oh man, that's not right, and like painting over it and over it. Like it's just, yeah, like as you go, you'll figure out like where your specific things that you are like, you're just like, that could be better, or like that could go a little smoother or something, I don't know if that helps, but.
I was also wondering if you mix your colors.
Yeah, that's a good one actually. Yeah, so I used to like, if I had like a big mural with like 40 colors or something, I would get like 20 colors and then mix the rest. But now I'm just like, no, I'm getting my colors Like that's why like house paint is so nice, because you can go and get your color chips, get each color mixed, no thinking. If I'm doing shading and stuff, like I'm ahead of time, like I will just be like, these two colors can shade together, these, but I keep them all in their separate things. And if I am like mixing colors, I mix them ahead of time. And another thing I do is like, instead of, you know, having like the big gallons, like, you know, on my site, because often like I have murals, like like 20, 30 colors sometimes. And so there's like 30 gallons of paints like all over the place. It's like insane. So you just like, I get the deli containers, like those sort of taller plastic deli containers. And I put one of each like color like in a deli container so that it's so small and manageable. I can hold it instead of like holding a gallon and like painting from it. Like it's easier to hold in my hand as I'm painting, especially if I'm up in a lift. Like it just makes the lift like less crazy if it's just some deli containers instead of, you know, 20 gallons of paint. Yeah, mixing ahead of time is a good idea, especially if you're doing a lot of like really like, you know, specific like shades and stuff like that. Yeah, like again, like it's gonna be one of those things where like the longer you do it, or like the more murals you'll do, like you learn so much every time you do a mural. Like I still learn so much every single time I do a mural, and I've done like 80 murals. Like this mural, I'm like, oh, like you learn from every single one, and you figure out like something to do a little bit better next time, which is like the fun thing about it for me. Like it's the thing that makes me like want to do it forever, because it just like makes your brain work in this like different way, I guess. But yeah, I don't know, it's tough. It's like, it's a lot. Yeah. Oh yeah, like my thing for a while, like I got this like habit that I picked up from like an artist at the Vancouver Mural Fest one year, that he was like, he's from Russia, and he's like, every time I finish a mural, I go and I have a glass of champagne and I walk around the city, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty nice. So that's like my little thing that I do with myself. Either like champagne or like whatever, like a glass of wine or something. You just like have like some sort of little ritual that is like, I did this, holy shit, you know, like just have something like that at the end where you're just like, yes. Because it is like sometimes also you're just like, you feel so tired and like by the end that you don't want to like have that kind of like, yes, I did it, like triumph moment, but do it, because it's like, it's impressive as hell to paint a mural. So yeah. Sorry.
No.
Blah, blah.
Do you ever work with a team of artists?
I'm a bit of a control freak, so I'm not like awesome with having like kind of random assistants and stuff. I think we were talking, I've like my system to a certain extent that like it takes me longer to explain my system to other people for them to help me than it is for me to just like do it. That said, if you have like people that you can like communicate easily with, I think it's like awesome. I have had a few have been so great to work with. And it's like a magical thing when you can find somebody that you can like work with. I've also worked with like collaborated with another like couple of artists, like an artist duo from Calgary. We just like vibe really good, and like our styles complement each other, and it's like really fun to work with them. But I think like just any random people, like sometimes it's hard to, like you need to like vibe with the person and like get their art style and stuff. But I think, yeah, sometimes it's fun, but I don't do it often, but when I do, it's nice, yeah.
Rosemary's asking, how many linear feet can you do in a Granada or a workday?
Can I do it? Oh, well, it depends. Again, like it depends on like what what kind of thing I'm doing. Like some parts of the mural, like 1 foot is like just one color, but then other parts of the mural, like there might be like more like detail and stuff in. So it's like, oof, I don't know. It really depends. It really depends, and it depends on like what the design is that I've done. Yeah, like the the surface, like I'm saying, like it all is really like, and this is another thing, like you'll get better at figuring all of that out as you go because every wall is different.
Any other questions?
So, sorry if this is a little invasive, but what is your hourly rate and how has it changed over time?
Well, okay, so I don't have like an hourly rate for murals. It doesn't really work out very well to do it that way. Like I have one for like illustration and design that I typically use, but it's like a totally different thing. I think my pricing murals is one of those things where like, this is why I'm so wishy-washy about like how much to charge for a mural, because honestly, like it's so dependent. And like some murals I make lots of money if it's like, you know, oh, a big company like hired me to do this like mural, like I'll make like a crazy amount of money because they just had it in the budget. And then sometimes I'll do a mural for a nonprofit and like not make that much money, but it's like something like really cool. Or like, yeah, like sometimes if like somebody wants a mural and they're just like, this is like my wall, this is my budget, and you know, but they let me do whatever I want. Sometimes that will factor into me like not charging as much as I normally would if it's like something I can do something really cool, or like the wall is really cool or something. So like there's just different ways of pricing murals that like I don't have like a set hourly rate, unfortunately. Like it just isn't really something that I can like specifically say. Like, yeah, I don't know. I know that's not very helpful, but it just is kind of true. Yeah, unfortunately.
Do you have like a floor and?
I don't do any murals for like less than $2,000. You're not even like remotely getting a mural for less than $2,000. Because like materials and my time and like all of the things, it's like, it's not really worth it at that point. And that's like a small mural, like a little guy, like a garage door or something.
Is that like total budget or is that take home art?
Total budget, yeah. I'd say total budget. Because like a small mural like that, like the materials, like if I'm like doing a garage door, and this is actually something that I'm like considering doing this summer, is like, and this is an idea that you guys can grab from me too, is like just going around and like advertising like garage door murals, because there's so many cool garage door murals in like, you know, bigger cities like Toronto and stuff. It's like such a like cool vibe in that city. I just want to see more of that kind of stuff. So I'm like very tempted to do like just like a series of like low cost like garage door murals, but like something like that, like I have so much paint in the basement that I don't have to ever buy like materials for something that small. Like I just have remnants of like paint for the rest of my life, basically. But you can also get like mist tints and like go to the eco station. I don't know if Lethbridge has like an eco station or whatever. But like, you know, like there's ways to get low cost paint materials to do something like that. And like a garage door is like a really good way to like jump into something like mural wise, good size. Like it'll give you like some, you know, some experience with like weird textures and stuff, and it just makes such a good impact. Yeah, but $2,000 is kind of like my bottom floor, but that might not be yours. I don't know. Like maybe yours is like 500 or 750 or 1,000. I don't know. I would say don't do a mural for less than $500 because that would make you sad. But you know, like it depends on what's up, right? Like, yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm not being helpful anymore.
We should just be respectful of Jill's time and that you're welcome also.
Oh, but I haven't even like. You guys have got at least this much time. We're good.
Any other questions from the floor?
Yeah.
How do you plan your colors? Because you said you have an iPad.
Yes.
So like, but like you said, don't look at the colors online. So how do you translate that like to, I guess, like Procreate probably?
Carefully.
Carefully?
Yeah. So the thing with your so you color chips, like you have your like color chips from the paint company. When you are looking at them, don't look at them inside in the dark or in weird light or something, like make sure you're like, you know, looking at them in natural light or outside in the daylight at least. I'm gonna see if I can find my, yeah, and like you basically are just like, it's not ever gonna be a perfect match with anything like if you're doing it on Procreate, but you're gonna get like an approximation of like the colors, and often like, okay, so here's actually, this is my like drawing for the mural I'm doing right now. So you can see like I did this drawing, and then what I did was like, I like, you know, used the little whatever eyedropper thing to pick out all the colors, and then I made these little strips just to see like what the colors are like look like beside each other, like, you know, what the values and tones are in comparison to each other. And then, yeah, I used my color fan books to pick out what colors they are, and then I labeled them, and then, you know, wrote the codes down.
That's something you kind of got an intuitive sense for, having gone back and forth between digital design and like
A little bit. I think that like I think that I have like certain colors that I've worked with quite a bit in the past, and so I think I do often use those as like reference points. Like if I, you know, have like a specific red that I'm like, oh, that red is like a nice red to work with. It's like not too transparent. Like I'll like sometimes intentionally include that in a design if I'm like going for a red. But I don't know, like I think spending a lot of time with like the color swatches and like, you know, fan books or whatever, yeah, you'll get a sense for the colors.
so you're not using like a Pantone.
I'm not, no, I'm not. That might be an efficient way to work, but I have no idea.
I don't know, because that's also like often ink rather than.
That's the thing, and like Pantone, I know, has like a weird thing with like you can't use Pantone in Photoshop anymore or something. It's like they're not licensed with Pantone, like they're mad at each other. I don't know. And so I'm just like, whatever. I honestly like, you can usually get like a pretty close approximation to whatever you're, you know, picking out of your like digital palette. If not, like, you know, that's why you have all of your color swatches to make sure everything still makes sense. Like if one color you couldn't quite find in your color swatch book, you know, at least like making sure that it still makes sense with all of your colors that you can get is really helpful. So like, yeah, just make sure that your colors, like you're looking at them in comparison with each other, like the actual like swatches. That's the most important part, because like this will never be seen by anybody basically. Like your client will see it, but they won't, like nobody else is going to care what this digital drawing looks like. You just really got to make sure what your like actual color chip colors, like what the paint is going to look like each of those colors in comparison to each other, because that's what the, you know, the real result is going to be. So yes.
One question, what is one of the coolest or most sincere or heartwarming stories that you've heard about one of your murals?
That I heard about one of the murals?
You know, like after you left it and
Yeah, I get a lot of people like you know, emailing me like from different cities being like, oh, I saw your mural. Like that's always really nice. Like a mural that I like forgot about or whatever, like, you know, like I've done so many years ago. That's like always really nice to get. I don't know, like sometimes you see like them in photos randomly on the internet, and that's like very weird.
In the background, people selfies.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, yeah, exactly. Like lots of selfie photos, which is like very funny. I don't know, like I'd have to think about that one, I guess. Yeah. Also, I'm like a little like brain rotted from you know, working. Yeah, good question though, but I can't think
You'll
of
think
any.
of something as soon as
I know, that's the
building.
problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem. I'll be like, oh yeah, that was really nice, but yeah. Yeah.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why you don't include cleaning the wall yourself in your work process?
It's just I just can't like do everything. Like that's one of the things that you can like, if you're like, I'm overwhelmed by like all the things with a mural, that's one of the things that you can not do. You know what I mean? Because like, I don't have a power washer. Like, I don't want to have to rent a power washer. Like, I'm like, power wash your wall, guys. You know, or like, you know, cut the grass in front of it.
You don't need an artist to do those things.
Exactly.
Right?
Like, it's not like, yeah, it's not specialized labor that I'm specialized to do. Like, I think that's like a very easy thing for you to sort of tell the client that they are responsible for in like, you know, in this reciprocal deal that you guys are both entering. Because it is, it's like, you know, you're, you know, doing something for them and, you know, yeah. So I think that's like a very easy thing for you to take off your very long list of doing a mural. And then it just makes it so that everybody's aware as well, like that they're on the same page, that like, I'm not gonna go in and like, you know, sand like some things and like, you know, fix the grout or whatever, like.
Where does it end?
Exactly,
Right?
there's no end to it. So if you are just like, listen, like I will paint the wall however, you know, but like, if you want to fix the wall, you should fix the wall before I do it. Like I had one in Dallas. I was in Dallas for a mural festival. So I was like flying in for like 5 days. It was like a whirlwind crazy thing. Like I had to paint this huge wall and they like didn't wash it or anything. And it was like covered in dust and it just was like peeling off by the end. It was really disappointing because I was just like, you can't do anything.
During the same festival? Like,
Yeah,
while you were there?
yeah.
Oh, no.
There was like a chunk that just like peeled off and I was like, well, I don't know, like what can you do? Like I can't come here and power wash your wall. Like, so yeah, just like making sure that everybody is like just aware of that situation is always really good. Because yeah, like most of the time it's fine, honestly. And like most of the time it is totally fine. Like 99% of the time, the wall is pretty much clean. Like it doesn't have to be like pristine or anything. I don't think power washing is like 100% necessary every single time. But just letting them know that like, if there is something on the wall that is not clean and the mural comes off, like that's, you know, not your fault. Like, so yeah, I think that's just like something that I have over the years learned that it's okay for me to source out to them. That's like, yeah. Yeah.
Official question. Ergonomics, your physical body.
Oh,
Still.
oh no, oh no, no.
From you.
I've got like other like, you know, other issues that makes my body suck, but yeah, definitely get like the grossest, like lamest nurse shoes you possibly can, like chonky heels. I have like a knee brace that I wear. Drink water. Water is really good for you, apparently. Yeah, no, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm covered in bruises right now. Like, it's just very physical. It's like an extremely physical, insane thing to do.
That's the thing I've noticed. I've struggled with painting. Like,
Yeah.
I won't necessarily notice when, like, instead of bringing my body up, I'll just bring my arm up and my
Yes.
neck and work, like, nerve pinches in here.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
so that was another question I had about, like, your lift. How, I know you work in layers, so it means you have to move up and down more, but you're not painting each grid to, like, full completion and full detail.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, how are you deciding when to move your lift and by how much? And just, like,
Yeah, so I typically, what I'll do is like, I always make sure that every layer, like every color, there's at least 2 layers of paint on the entire wall at any given point. Like even a color that like, you know, oh, it has great coverage with 1 coat, like it'll look bad in like 5-10 years. So just give it 2 coats regardless. So I like that'll sort of dictate like how I move around as well. Like if like I do something at the top and it's drying, I'll move to a different section and it's drying. Usually with a lift, like I'm going all the way up to the top, working, and then like going down. That is just because like I don't have to start it every time to go down. You have to start it to go up, but not to go down. Which is a cool safety feature in case your lift dies, like mine did the other day. You can go down and get off the lift. without having to start it. Yes. Yeah, so I think just being strategic with like drying times and stuff, like always having at least, you know, like at least a few things you can do while waiting for something to dry or while waiting for something to like, yeah, cure or something like that. Just, yeah, being a little strategic. Yeah, I guess I like to work up to down because it just feels nice to be like, I'm done up there, and then you're like just working at the bottom at the end. And also like sometimes with the really taller walls, even now like I get a little bit like, ooh, it's tall, and so like just getting it like right off the bat, like done, you're like, yeah.
Working at heights doesn't teach you how not to be afraid of heights.
Yeah, it's funny, like boom lifts still scare the crap out of me, but scissor lifts I very much have a sea leg situation with boom lifts. I'm like,
Can you talk about the difference between the two for people who might not
boom lifts and scissor lifts? Yeah, so scissor lifts are the ones that just go up and down, and they have those like crosses that are like scissors. So they don't like, you know, you can't get like around corners or anything, but they're extremely useful for just like flat walls. Scissor lifts, there's like a few different kinds. There's like indoor electric scissor lifts that are like the little guys. Usually they're smaller footprints, but they can't be used on any sort of like slantiness, like 0 degree grade kind of thing only. And then the ones that, like the one that I'm using right now is called a rough terrain scissor lift. They got like the big boy crazy tires, and they have outriggers. So they, like the outriggers go down on the ground and like lift up the tires so that you're like, it like compensates for the level, and then you can go up. So you use those like anytime that you don't have anything super flat. And then boom lifts are like the ones that, you know, like do this.
like dinosaur guys.
Yeah, so there's like a few different kinds of boom lifts. There's like ones that like just go kind of up and down. Those are just boom lifts, like telescoping boom lifts. And then there's articulated boom lifts, are the ones that have like a couple of joints that you can kind of go up and around things and like around corners and stuff. And you can use, there's like different reasons that you would use different ones, but yeah, you can't use any lift without getting certified for lifts.
We have like
Let it be known. Yeah, and getting certified is kind of, it's an interesting experience. You usually, I mean, I don't know about Lethbridge, but when I took it in Edmonton, it was like, I was in a room with, you know, 20 other like oil bros. Like every single time it's like a room full of oil bros, and they look at me like, are you lost?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, just getting my certification re-upped, bro.
Do you have to pay for it every time?
Yeah,
Is it expensive?
it's not like, it's like, it depends on like, if you're getting certified for the first time for the MUP, it's like more, I don't remember, it's like maybe $80. Everybody has a different price. Like I don't know what it is here. And then like, it's cheaper if you're just getting re-certified. It's like usually like $50 or something. But
Okay.
again, like it depends on the region. Like
$100 or less every few years kind of thing.
yeah, but you got to do your fall protection and your MUP. So each one of those is like 80, 70, $50, something like that. And you like the fall protection and MUP, you have to do both of those for the first time in class. But as far as I know, from what I've been told from one OHS officer, the fall protection you can just redo online, which is cheaper and easier.
And that's the harness.
Yeah, it's just like learning how to use a harness. You gotta like learn how to, like, you just have to learn about working at heights, basically. It's like,
How not to choke yourself and die.
yeah, don't die,
Okay.
basically. Yeah, and then like learning, like the lift course is like, you get in a classroom and you do like they have like a slide thing and you go through all these slides. And the first time I did it, it was basically just like sitting in a room, yeah, with like 20 oil bros, and they show you videos of like people just dying on like, you're just like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, exactly. So you're just like, okay, I'm scared, sure, great, thank you. And then they're like, okay, we're gonna go drive a lift now. And you're like, super. Yeah, but it's fine. Honestly, scissor lifts are amazing. I love them. I don't drive a car because I'm weird, but I can drive a scissor lift and I love it. So, you know, don't be scared of scissor lifts. They're very fun, very cool, very awesome.
Yeah,
They're the best. I wish I could just have that as my
Just drive
car.
that to work, just
Yeah.
really slow.
Really slow, but like I'm in charge.
Yeah,
In a scissor lift, yeah.
Okay, we're almost at the end of our
Hmm.
stream time here. We'll do a last call. Any last questions?
Cool.
So yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Gigantic thank you to you, Jill. for-
Happy to do it. Hopefully it was somewhat coherent.
It was amazing.
Absolutely
Thank
wonderful.
you so much.
Great.
Thanks so much for doing it.
Yeah.
Thanks to everyone online. If you're still out there in digital internet land, there are still a few people left.
Sweet.
If you're not already, and everyone in this room, if you're not already, please consider becoming a member of the Allied Arts Council. It's free for artists, which all of you are. Just go to artslethbridge.org, sign up there, super easy. Won't bug you too much unless it's for something cool like this, or other artist opportunities and stuff. So thank you all so much for coming. Once again, thank you, Jill.
Yay.
And, yeah.
All right. Yay, everybody.
If I'm PT, if